Recon Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Kreitz Market, The Social, and Focus Fit San Marcos. All right, Recon Athlete episode 87. Good morning. Good Saturday morning. Got a little rain this morning. Was it raining on the way in? Or did
it rained on Mopac. So I was when I got out of the house in Lockhart, America, it was just ending and kind of sun was breaking through the clouds. Mm-hmm. Then I got into Austin and it was pretty dry on Ben White. But when I got in Mopac North, it started coming down all the way to about 35th.
Really?
Yeah.
So I mean, I was woken up here at the Paddock Studios. Because I sleep at the studios. About 5, it was about 5, 6 in the morning. It was about 6 in the morning. And yeah, I think there was, I mean, I could have sworn, I mean, somebody's house or a building or something had gotten hit by this lightning.
Oh, really?
It was really close.
Yeah.
Like it just, my room just like lit up and then immediately was like just shaking the building.
Felt that rumble?
Yeah. So I was like, man, that was pretty close. But it was nice. So Snoop says there's a steady pour in Westlake right now. Shout out to my cousin Edgar. Shout out to Velma Paz Aleman. Shout out to Clevie Cook, Grams. Cool. It's BJ's grandma.
Word.
Yeah. She's
welcome.
I love Grams.
Cool.
Back in the day, we used to hang out at BJ's, you know, and the best thing was to stay the night at BJ's.
Okay.
And then Grams would make biscuits and gravy the next morning.
Like sausage.
Like homemade gravy.
Ugh.
Yeah, like homemade biscuits.
Get a roux going.
Yeah, I mean,
some butter and flour.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about Grams here, dude. Anybody named Grams?
A little chicken stock afterwards.
I mean, it was. She made homemade cookies. Bring them, like.
Can I come?
So shout out to Grams and Paul as well. So Zach Luceto is on his way. We've got Chris Sanchez here, Paul Rodriguez. Shout out to everybody on the watch party. We'll talk a little bit of Kyler Murray, talk a little bit of Jamal Adams, which is that's a big thing right now, especially for the Cowboys fans. And then other topics as assigned. We did have the homework that I assigned that Zach kind of protested against because apparently I'm not allowed to give homework. That's a Zach thing. It's a Zach's corner thing. So we'll just leave that to Zach from now moving forward. And that's fine. That's fine, Zach. So we'll talk about that movie. I'm no longer here. Ya no estoy aquí. And you had a few things about it, so we'll say that. And that's kind of why I started the show off with a little bit of Selena, little techno cumbia. So, but yeah, man, how's your week been?
It's been steady. We've had some new things going on at the office, which is good. It's good for the kids, the students who are in school, but may need a little extra food service. So, we're helping them out in that capacity, through yourtexasbenefits.com. So it's a quick shout out. But, yeah, man, I was just kind of thinking we've been working a lot. We've been doing this for, 87 shows straight. I think we've only missed maybe less than 2 or 3 shows. No shows combined. We haven't missed a show.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was asking Chris, I was like, when are you going on vacation, bro?
Yeah, and I said, what's that? And then I was like, well, let's talk about this later.
Because I got mine. I got mine locked up.
When's yours?
So I will not be here the week of August 3rd through the 9th. And then on the show, August 30th or 29th, that's whatever that last Saturday in August is, I'm gonna have to call in because that's my fantasy weekend.
Okay.
But I told myself, we've been churning and burning since last August of 2019. We've gone through, a football season. We've gone through, we've gone through so many things in the world today that don't really need to be mentioned, but we've all know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just saying, I think it's time to take a break. And it's going to be a break from not only the 9 to 5, but it's going to be a break from recon because it's going to be really hard for me to do that. But I think I need it. I need a recharge and I need to kind of get away so I can come back stronger after that first week in August. So I've kind of outlined that and that's your fantasy weekend. That's your vacation. Well, no. So the first week in August, that's just going to be a personal vacay.
What are you going to do? Anything planned yet?
Nothing planned yet, but definitely golf is going to be in the mix and definitely probably a beach. What beach? I don't know yet. But yeah, I want some fruit around me. I want some drinks around me, maybe some ladies around me that are willing to hang out. And, I just want to be comfortable. That's the biggest thing. I don't want to worry about this. I don't want to worry about anything else outside of just my wellness, my rejuvenation.
Yeah. And that's what vacation's about. So, but I'm glad you have a plan. I haven't. I need to make one.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the beach or something like that. I don't know.
There's a golf course. Yeah, I talk about the beach, and I'm talking about South Padre Island, and that's not anything huge, but for me, it's a getaway. And I remember, back in the day when I was probably in my early teens, maybe 12, 13, there's a golf course in Brownsville, Texas. And if anybody doesn't know where Brownsville is, it's right on the Texas-Mexico border. Well, it's so close that on the course, one of the holes, you could walk to Mexico because it's like 100 yards there. And there's no barrier. There's no wall. Right. There's no, barricade that can prevent you. But, yeah, there's literally a golf course on the Texas-Mexico border, which is cool. I mean, but if you hook that drive, I mean, it's going to Mexico.
Yeah.
So
there's a potential you can hit the ball so far. It goes to another country.
Technically, yes.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'll check it out. I mean, but this is the first time I've heard you mention golf.
Oh, Chris, I'm a golfer from way back, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I play. I haven't played lately, but I play.
All right.
I mean, my father introduced me into golf like when I was like 5 or 6, and it was one of those things where it's just purely recreational. And I think it was also one of those things where this is something that you may need in the future just for networking or for camaraderie or just for exercise.
Yeah.
And so I remember playing with my dad and my grandfather and my uncle. And, we'd play there in Lockhart at the State Park, or we'd go to San Marcos and drive balls at the driving range there. But, a lot of times the exclusivity of some of these courses in Austin, we just didn't have access to or didn't have the means to go. So it was one of those things where if you could get on a course, by all means, check it out, get there. And, I was taught the technique early, how to grip, how to stand. And, when your dad's trying to teach you something new, he's really tough on you.
Yeah. That's true. And speaking of dads, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's going to be Father's Day. And, what do you got planned? Do y'all got planned? Are you going to hang out at the house? Or
I don't want to make everybody jealous, but me and my pops, we're going to head over to Bastrop and pick up some Elgin Southside Market beef sausage. He really likes their beef sausage. Nothing against Kreitz Market or anything, but it's just whatever they do, he likes it. And then my mom's making some chicken mole enchiladas. And, of course, she gets down with her Spanish rice and refried beans. And so, it's going to be a good time.
Word up. Happy Father's Day. Hey, Zach, will you kick that light on? Yeah. No, the other one. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
So we had the natural light come in, but I guess there's a cloud.
That cloud, yeah.
Yeah. So I think my dad, so I'm going to be working again. Shout out to Kreitz Market, before I do #no ads, over at Revelry on the Boulevard here, but they're going to do some steak specials. So
yeah, I saw that.
So I invited the parents, they're still doing, a lot of quarantining, they're trying to stay They're trying to stay healthy and
right.
but there's a nice patio out there out back. They can keep them away from people. Staff is wearing masks and gloves and everything. So
I actually made a comment on one of their posts because they were in the kitchen and they were having a little B-roll and getting things like, showing their preparation and the jazz music. I was like, oh, this reminds me of that show Frasier. They used to come on NBC, and then whoever runs the media account, I don't know if it's Lockery or who it is, but they were like, we got to keep it classy for Dad, and I was like, right on.
I think it's Nate, our buddy Nate Bills. Shout out to Nate. What are you gonna do for Father's Day tomorrow?
My family actually went to so we have like a pretty nice like camper.
Oh, okay.
Keep it in Rockport.
Oh, nice.
So my family actually went there Thursday. So they're staying Thursday to Monday.
Oh, but not you.
No, but not me.
Oh.
They always go, like they always be like taking off work and stuff, or my dad's not really working right now. My sister isn't really working yet.
Mm-hmm.
So they just be like having all the time. So I'm not able to go to a lot of this stuff.
Because you got to work.
Right.
Yeah. How's work going for you?
It's good.
It's chilling.
Yeah, everything's still from home. So
I'm getting paid, chilling. So it's all good.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, Recon Athlete, episode 87. Chris Sanchez, Paul Rodriguez, Zach Lucetto now in the house. Zach, you've been hanging out with Snoop past couple weeks over
Fridays. I think it's gonna be my new like a thing now.
Yeah.
Doing like.
Are you gonna leave us?
Probably. Nah.
Probably. See just how you framed that? Probably. No.
I mean, it's okay, man. I mean, you'd be irreplaceable, but
Yeah, so probably like 3/4 of the night on Fridays to come. I'm probably gonna do that. Be up there at the studio with Snoop.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. I like it.
Yeah, and
I've been doing radio with Snoop for a long time.
Yeah,
like how you have. So
yeah, you learn a lot when you're in there with Snoop. Like like actually doing the show with him. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that you learn. So I mean, I think it's good that you're in there. Especially if could be something that you're gonna continue like.
Right.
I mean, hopefully make it a career.
Right.
You learn a lot, especially because that's what I was. I mean, I was in studio with Snoop for years doing fan stand. I learned a lot just by being there, right. watching him prepare, watching him, do the things that he does. So yeah. So how have you assessed your performance past couple nights or past couple Fridays? So Zach's on Flex ATX. Is it Flex ATX or what's it called? Flex Friday nights?
I mean, it's Flex ATX, but it's like Friday Night Flex is what they call the show.
Yeah. So Friday night 7 to 9, you can hear Zach and Snoop do their thing. So
but no, I think I've done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like my element of a show.
Yeah.
Like it's just interacting with people. It's like supposed to be like high energy, like fun, like kind of like after like the adults get off the air, it's like more of like a fun, like I don't want to say like necessarily urban, but like modern and like younger type of broadcast. And I think that's like what I bring to the table.
Yeah.
And I was kind of talking yesterday after the show, like going there, like I was pretty tired that day. Like I didn't feel like I had like a lot of energy, and that's kind of like my like stick, is like high energy, like fun. Like, I mean, I think I'm pretty knowledgeable about the topics, but I mean, like when you're next to Snoop or you're next to like you guys talking about sports, like I'm never gonna be more knowledgeable than y'all. So like I was like, dang, if I don't have like energy, like what do I have? But like I think I'm able, like I think I've done radio long enough that I'm able to like sit down and kind of like turn it on and like come into that like I don't know, like mindset or character that I need to be. So
yeah, it's a performance,
right? Yeah, so I feel like I do a pretty good job. I mean, I don't really listen to myself. I normally do. Like whenever I had the show on the horn previously, like I would go back and listen to clips and stuff like that. But I haven't really listened to myself. I mean, it's only been 2 weeks, so I'm sure Paul has been able to listen to more.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing is your little anecdotes that you kind of put into the show, not only here but at the horn. It's comical, and I think that satire is right up your alley. So it's kind of like your niche, and I think you do a really good job at it.
All right, and speaking of, since we're on Flex ATX, let's go ahead and let's play Paul's. So is this the second interview?
Yeah, I think it's hour 2.
Hour 2. So it's Paul joining Snoop and Zach on the Friday Night Flex, talking a little bit recruiting and whatever else they're talking about.
Oh man, glad to be back. I see that man Lucero in the building today.
Yeah, what's good, my biggest bro?
man. I appreciate you.
Two-thirds of the dynasty. Shout out Country Breakfast.
Yeah, for sure. But I wanted to give some love. I kind of missed this man in the first hour. That's on me. I own it. But Wham Nation, wide receiver Carl Chester getting that offer from Louisiana Monroe. Big D1 offer for the young man. He's a big body too, man. He's like 6'3", 210.
Yeah.
So good for him and good for Wham Nation. So Coach Keller, I don't know who's going to give him the ball, but I know he's got some QB talent out there in Manor. So
dude, we could talk for hours about that. Oh, my goodness. I'll tell you about Carl Chester. He was out there mossing DBs from Shadow Creek. So just to show you like what kind of talent that guy has. And, Paul, as we get closer to the season, we will educate the ATX on the Manor quarterback situation. But also, before you get into the recruiting talk, you've heard that Manor had to hit the pause button on their strength in summer camp, as well as San Marcos and a few other schools due to COVID. What are your thoughts on the situation?
I'm very proud of the transparency that those schools have brought forth. They could have easily kept things hush hush, but I think for the safety and the security of the student athletes is paramount with them. So first class, and good on Coach Keller and Coach Walsh to get things shut down. It's an unfortunate thing, but these are student athletes first, and so It was really good for me to see them shut it down. But I'm sure things will get ramped back up once things are clear and they've done their quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah, they've already kind of circled July 9th on the calendar as a projected return date. So, that's smart. Transparency, Paul, and you're right. They could hide these cases. And in the situation with San Marcos, they said it was one individual kid. Now, I know everybody's excited about having Coach John Walsh down there and just trying to reinvigorate that San Marcos program, which has had a couple of tough years since making the playoffs, the area finals, beating Westwood in 2016. But to be continued. Let's talk some recruiting, Paul.
Yeah, man, we can just hop back in it. We'll kick things off the opposite because I know you got this young man coming on the show earlier, Demetrius Gardner-Holmes, getting that offer from Swag U. And then we have, LBJ defensive end, Brendan Jones got the offer from Colgate. Caleb Jones, he'll just be coming, Caleb Brown, he'll just be coming a junior linebacker out of Del Valley High School, getting offer from Boston College. So, flexing the grades right there real quick. And then Vandergrift DB, Logan Arnold, getting an offer from Oberlin College, as well as Jamal Collins from Glenn Grizzlies defensive line. Jamal Collins getting that offer from Oberlin College as well. Young man, Westlake offensive lineman, Aiden Kinnaird getting offer from Illinois State. That's a really big offer for him. Austin High offensive lineman Harrison Donovan getting love from Washington and Lee University. Good for him on that end. And then, back to Connolly, wide receiver, McAnthony Everest getting that Swag U offer as well. So him and Demetrius could really team up and make a tandem down there. A young man, I kind of said in the first hour, skyrocketing up the charts for the wide receiver core is Lake Travis wide receiver Jackson Scruggs, getting two offers this week, one from Colorado School of the Mines as well as St. Anselm. So that was really good to see him get that offer. And then we'll hop over to Lake Travis real quick. Defensive line, Austin Spill getting offer from North Park University, and Lucas Rudich getting offer from Whittier College. And Whittier College came back into that 6A area and getting big-time offers for Round Rock Dragon linebacker Carson Otworth, as well as Vista Ridge linebacker Elijah Estes. So Whittier College trying to garden up some of that skill set. And then we can't forget about the man heading the Westlake Chaparrals, Cade Klubnik, getting that Herman offer, led Arizona State offer this past week. So big time offers all around, and I'm glad to see, we'll use that technology to get these offers out there, even if we can't meet face to face.
Yeah. One quick note on Westlake quarterback Cade Klubnik. I actually went out to practice earlier in the week, and I'm sure people have heard of Jayden Greathouse, of course, but there's so much new young talent receiving wise for Westlake. You lose Mason Mangum to go out to Cali. You have Ryan Lindley going out to an Ivy League school, and then you have Jake Mish graduating. You got John Luke Nicholas back, but I'm telling you, if Westlake is going to challenge for another state title, it's going to fall on the shoulders of number 6K Klubnik, and man, it's his show.
Yeah, for sure. And just came out today. I'm not sure if you saw or not, but Dave Campbell's just dropped their top 10, and the Westlake Chaparrals are coming in fourth behind North Shore, Duncanville, and I think Katy. So, Lake Travis is in the mix as well in the top 10, but I'm not too sure. I would argue Westlake could easily be number 2 or 3, but that's just how I see it.
Yeah, and me, I have Lake Travis ranked above Westlake just because of the amount of talent they have coming back, and you can go to hornfm.com and look at the Lake Travis kind of camp tour, and you'll notice Jackson Scruggs coming back, but also Marcelo Alanis and Weston Stevens and Gary Gordon and Aiden Nava. I mean, there are so many names returning for LT, and and not just because 104.9 The Horn is the flagship for Lake Travis Cavalier football, and I've said that Westlake, I picked them to go to state again this year, but I have LT ahead of Westlake. Don't hate me, Shaps. All right, Paul. Man, thank you so much. Solid every week. You get so good at this every week. I can't wait till we get deeper in the summer and continue to have you on. Before we let you go, Paul, you shouting out to anybody?
Oh, man, just shout outs to God upstairs, my parents, Lockhart America, and the GOAT, the best to do it, Snoop Daniel.
Yeah. Paul, thanks, man. Paul Rodriguez.
All right, Paul, P-Rod, and Snoop Daniel. Zach, how come you didn't talk? You didn't ask a question.
When you do a podcast with Paul, you can barely get a word in on the podcast.
You better believe it. You were taking my shine in the first 3 minutes of that segment. That's why I was like, I got to hurry up. Zach done took 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, man. So shout out to Westlake and Lake Travis, because there seemed to be a little bit of a debate there between you and Snoop about the ranking of them.
Yeah, man, and that's kind of a big topic that probably will come in later too, as we get closer maybe to the season. But another thing too, and Snoop was kind of mentioning this. We were having a little side discussion while y'all were listening to that clip. But the quarterback situation in Manor is going to be really fun once we get real close to the season. So stay tuned for that as we get closer. But Manor is on the rise at the QB position as well as the skill set. They're already top skill set position. But, yeah, it's going to be a fun time, and hopefully Coach Keller can do a good job managing it. He has before, and I'm pretty sure he's going to continue to do so.
Yeah, and
who has a better season, Del Valle or Manor?
Man. And by better, do you mean by, like, where they finish in their district or, like, how far they go in the playoffs?
How far they go in the playoffs.
Oh, Manor.
You think so?
Yeah, just because there's way too much competition in that 6A division, especially 26 6A.
Yeah. I guess you'd have to factor that in.
Because you got to think about, like, do they even get into the playoffs? Does Del Valle even get there?
Right.
And if they do, who do they play in the first round? They're going to play a school from 25 6A, which is all the Round Rock schools of Vanderdrift.
Yeah, that's true. And I'll have Coach Keller on. And I was going to have him, I was going to pre-record an interview with him, but then I thought about it, and I was like, man, I want to have Paul, at least Paul, maybe, if they use Zach too, in on that interview, just to get him,
maybe on Wednesday night.
I could possibly do that. Maybe. I could try to get that going. So
I have some questions.
Yeah. Right. Sure. And then there was something else that Zach mentioned while we were listening to that interview, was about San Marcos and how you thought that,
I was
similar to
comparing them to College Station High School, who we've seen, really since they opened up, have pretty kind of immediate success, then kind of dropping back down, and then kind of spiking back up. And that's across all sports as well. Like, I know their baseball team is really good. I think as a program, I think College Station is exactly where they want to be, coming back from kind of like a lackluster season.
Right.
And I can kind of really kind of see a comparison between them and San Marcos, not just because they're the same colors, but like the type of athletes that I think they're going to be bringing in. If you think of like what's around College Station, it's very similar to what's around San Marcos with A&M versus Texas State. You have like all of the businesses over there. I think they're going to be very well coached, and their program is bringing in more and more money every year because of what's around them. I think you could have argued in the past that maybe they were a coach away from being good. I think now they're probably a coach away from being like competing for deep playoff runs, and I think they have that coach now.
Yeah, 100%. And right now, I think San Marcos.
I would go back and look at some College Station games. I think you'll really see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I don't doubt it, but I think with a hire like Coach John Walsh, coming in from Denton Geyer, who was playing, in the state championship against Westlake last year, is an extremely lucky get for San Marcos. And you just mentioned it, the resources that they're going to have available from the tax dollars bringing in from the community, as well as all the businesses and support there, in addition to the facilities. I mean, they have indoor facilities just like some of the top schools in the state. And I know we need to get to our topics today, but for San Marcos, I just feel like for them to be relevant, before they were a coach away when they had the players, and now I think they're a quarterback away, because you can develop the skill set with repetitions. But if you have an alpha at that quarterback position, I think the last one they had was Calderon. I can't remember his first name on top of my head.
Prudy.
There you go. Thank you, Prudy. And he was a phenomenal baseball player, and that's something that San Marcos has a lot of. But if they can kind of get that alpha back at the QB position, sky's the limit for them.
And I think a school like San Marcos, I don't think you're ever going to have that like Division I quarterback prospect. And I just don't think that type of athlete is necessarily in that area, especially because of the proximity that you have to these like well-known schools. So like if you're a quarterback that's coming up in the San Marcos area, it's only 45 minutes for you to come up in the like Travis area or the Westlake area, or transfer to some of these like really big kind of quarterback producing schools. But I think you see that with College Station as well, is the quarterbacks that they've had have gone on to play Division I receiver or run Division I track. And I think even looking back at Walsh's quarterbacks at Denton Geyer, he's always had like these very dual threat run centric quarterbacks. And I think that's all it's going to take, is to find an athlete that has the leadership qualities that you can move him to that quarterback position and kind of fill everything else around him.
My only reservation about that is previously San Marcos never had that kind of D1 QB like you mentioned. But I think with Coach Walsh coming in, I think out of the 13 years that he was at Denton Geyer, only one of his quarterbacks didn't go D1. Now, I think that's either attributed to, one, he found the right kid and put him in that leadership position and developed him. But at the same time, I think he has the ability to morph a young man to become a D1 type of prospect. But as far as garnering talent with these big schools in the area, it's going to be a challenge without a doubt.
Yeah. So, San Marcos, I think, you also mentioned, the fact that Amazon is down there, and there's a lot more job opportunities in the area.
Does Bezos' kid play quarterback?
I don't know.
I don't think Bezos has a kid. maybe he's designing one like Elon Musk did. I'm not sure.
He's cloning one. So, I mean, with all those job opportunities down there, there's obviously going to be that development of houses. There's going to be more families, more kids. Player pool is going to get bigger. So over the years, there's a potential for San Marcos to be a pretty good powerhouse.
Then you run the risk of them opening another school.
That's true.
Well, I mean, if they do anything like, Westlake or Lake Travis, or
I mean, they're already a 6A school. I do see what you're saying.
Or Allen, they can. There's things that school boards can do to keep the schools together, and I don't think that they will. Why do you say
right on? Right on.
Why do you laughing?
You're totally right. I don't want to get go into any further.
I mean, there's the capacities of the schools, and that's the thing. Like,
you can build add-on.
You can build, you can have you can have an annex.
Have a charter school.
Yeah, I mean they do it out at Manor. I mean, you've got a senior high. You've got the 11th and 12th graders at one campus, and then the 9th and 10th graders at a different campus. So, but you can pull from both campuses.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what Coach Walsh can do. Not this year, but next. That's what I want to see how he does in year 2 in this.
And it'll be interesting. Maybe we can try to reach out to him, because it'd be interesting to find out. I mean, obviously a coach like that sees something, sees potential.
Well, if y'all don't know this or not, Coach John Walsh does follow Recon Athlete on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
If y'all didn't know that.
Word up.
But I think the thing you worry about first, like the first obstacle to overcome being an established coach at an unestablished program, is like having a season that gets rid of that stigma of what San Marcos is, of what you see on the schedule when you see San Marcos.
And one of the big things that he talked about, and I've mentioned it on the show, is he told the school board and the community, the faster you trust our processes, the faster we'll have success. That's a quote that he said, and he goes, the longer it takes you to trust, the longer it's going to take us to have success. So it's all in the community, but it will be really interesting to see how things progress.
So what that translates to in coach speak is, don't be calling me when your son doesn't play.
Exactly.
You know, don't go to the school board when your son doesn't play. Don't call the superintendent when your son doesn't play. You know, that's basically what he's saying.
That's exactly what he said.
Let me do my job,
Right.
and I will make this a great program.
It's like, you see these rings right here?
Yeah.
You trust me, this is how we get rings.
All right, yeah. All right, Recon Athlete, episode 87. Chris Sanchez, Paul Rodriguez, Zach Luceto here in the Paddock Studio. Shout out to Kreitz Market, our feature sponsor. Also, want to shout out to the Social and Focus Fit San Marcos. And shout out to everybody that's on the watch party right now. All right, let's get into our topics. Cardinals Kyler Murray. And he is the latest to say that he's going to, well, not the latest, because there's a lot of other people. Yeah. Kenyon Drake said, too, that he would kneel with them, you know. And Kyler Murray is just like, you know what, I'm gonna kneel during the national anthem. And, you know, he had a fan tweet at him, like, you know, saying something. And basically, you know, Kyler was like, I don't care. Like, I don't give a, you know. Bleep. And I think with the national scene right now and the movement that's going on, I think it was news for like a day.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was news. Yeah, but I think it was like Wednesday when this came out, I think.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about Kyler's statement?
Kyler's statement.
Yeah.
You
maybe
know,
half a day.
Yeah, Kyler's statement.
Yeah.
His statement.
Yeah.
And you know, of course, I always listen to sports talk. You know, just there's nothing else to listen to.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, and it was a big deal, but it didn't really like stick.
I didn't even know about it.
Really?
Yeah, that's why. Because when I was like, "What's the news? Like, what did he say?"
Yeah.
And whenever I went to go research it right afterward, I'm like, "Oh, that's it."
It wasn't even like normally when one of y'all, not you because you drop stuff in the group all the time, but like whenever you like say something in the group, it's normally like trending, like it's really big news. So I started typing in Kyler Murray on Twitter, and I kept having to like put more letters and spell out Kyler and spell out Murray, because normally if it's trending, it'll like autofill, you know, and like I had to. It wasn't even trending, so
yeah, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, because it's like we're talking Kaepernick on Wednesday and the whole kneeling thing, and now it's gotten to the point where that statement doesn't really even make news. Doesn't really shake.
I don't think it's going to make news or be in the news
until it actually happens.
That extent, until day one.
Yeah,
like 70% of the league kneels or something like that. I think that's when it's going to be, or doesn't kneel. I think that's when it's going to be in the news again.
Yeah.
Because as far as all these players like coming out on social media saying they're going to kneel, I mean, it's like a dime a dozen right now. It's
yeah.
It's like not as polarizing as it was in 2016.
So because it's not in our face, it's not on television. It's not like,
Well, I think there's just so many people who are behind the movement right now, and because there's so many people who are white, brown, black, Asian, whoever, majority of United States citizens.
Do you think if Ben Roethlisberger were to come out on social media and say I will not be kneeling, do you think that would make more news than Kyler Murray saying he's going to kneel?
Well, I mean, if he's saying I'm not going to kneel,
yeah,
maybe.
I feel like that would make more news.
We saw what happened to Drew Brees.
Yeah, but to me, I think the reason why that happened with Drew was like Drew was a part of the community.
Yeah,
Drew was seen as part of the black community because of what he's done for New Orleans from Katrina to now. And I, you hear these guys talk about, they're like, we didn't expect Drew to say this. Now, Ben Roethlisberger, you could expect him to say that. You could expect Phillip Rivers to maybe say that. You could expect, another white quarterback to say that. But for Drew to say it, I think that was a big message that was polarizing because they didn't expect
just because of their markets,
right? And I think the biggest thing too that you want to make sure that people understand,
you wouldn't expect Matt Ryan to say it, I guess.
Well, maybe.
Nah, I mean,
Maybe.
and not in Atlanta.
No, I mean,
You
not
know.
right now in Atlanta for sure. But I mean, I think the biggest thing that we want to make sure that we identify is like the NFL players know who's questionable, who's maybe not with their movement.
It was a little
And
race, you know.
And so, but for the players they do know, the white players they do know are with them. They're going to be, if something comes out where they're not with them, they're going to be like, you saw what the messages were on Facebook. I mean, on Twitter, you saw the instant demonization of Drew Brees. And so, I mean, if you're not, if you carry yourself like you're part of that community, and then you say something that, you know, isn't in line with what their message is, you're going to feel that wrath of that community.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, you know, and it's hard right now, especially what Drew Brees said was like at the height of.
It was right after
It was at the height of you know, of the movement. And so, you know, he got a lot of backlash from it. And I think right now, if you say something that's against what, you know, is trending
Like the
on
flow,
Twitter,
yeah.
you know, you're going to get some backlash. I have a little issue with that just because, you know, this is America. You should be able to have an opinion. I don't agree with that opinion, you know, personally, but everybody should, you know, everybody gets an opinion. But if you say something as a high profile athlete that goes against what, you know, the narrative is, you know, you're going to get backlash. So I think with Kyler Murray here, it wasn't, you know, it's kind of going with the flow, and I think that's not really like real big news.
Right, and I think it goes back to that word that I liked to use on Wednesdays, disingenuous. I feel like because of that, you're having a lot of disingenuous like posts or sayings, like like feeding to that flow of social media, just because, like right, because like you'd rather these people not say anything, or the only thing you can say is to feed into that flow. And I think half of it is not even their true, like.
Look, there's no question that black citizens' lives matter. There's just there's not a question.
Yeah.
And I think what Drew was trying to do was something that bad timed. It was the bad optics, you know, and he probably, and somebody lobbed him a question and he fell for it. You know, he probably just wasn't on. But I totally agree with the disingenuous part, because it's like, how much money's on the line for Drew Brees? Right. I always come back to the money, because it's just the way I am.
Yeah.
Well, like, you're seeing all these people like get fired from these corporations for saying something.
Cancel culture.
And the other thing too is he has his NBC contract on the line too. I mean, that's a very, very progressive company who's going to say, you told this line so you can get these millions. And it's like, what do you do? I mean, do you want the millions or not?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, like you said, this is the United States of America. You have the protection of the First Amendment, but that doesn't mean you're not. So that doesn't mean that you're immune from society's reaction. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. It's like, yeah, he can say what he wants. This is the United States of America, but society is going to have a reaction for you.
And the society has way more of like a organized like reaction against you now than it did.
Because everybody has a voice.
Right. Or like coordinated, you know, now it's like, let's all comment on this person's post. Let's all like shout out this person's work or this person's, you know, like everything. And as opposed to even like the Facebook, MySpace days, like it wasn't like that, you know, like if it was a couple people would find out about it and do it. It wasn't like I found out about it. Let me tell all my friends before I go say something. Now it's like society and the social media flow has become way more coordinated and like almost like a mob mentality, you know?
So I have a question. Do you think that Roger Goodell comes up with a solution to appease both sides? Or do you think that Goodell's going to let people kneel during the anthem?
Zach?
What would be a solution?
I don't know. We're not talking about. It's not on us to figure out the NFL's quandary.
Well, I mean, one of the solutions is to do the, you know, national anthem like before the players come out. You know, like,
but then you don't give. Then the optic is that you're not going to allow the players to protest.
Right.
So that's where I'm saying is like they're going to want to be out there.
I think
while the national anthem is going on, and so you're gonna have to figure out. Goodell's gonna have to figure out how to make this work, and it's like do you put off the silent majority, or do you put off the players who are they're your players?
Yeah,
it's your lifeblood.
So I think like the big corporations that you're seeing be canceled, the reasons they're being canceled is because they're doing something against the flow.
Yeah.
The corporations that you're seeing being celebrated are the corporations that are feeding into the flow. Mm-hmm. And then you have those corporations in between that are staying even flow, business as usual, and those are the corporations that are doing nothing.
Yeah.
You're having a couple people here and there say, like, why are you not doing anything? Mm-hmm. But other than that, it's really business as usual. And I think I think that's where the NFL wants to be.
In the middle?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a middle anymore.
But I think
you have to pick a side.
I think you'll deal with that in a case by case basis. If you were to say we're only gonna do the anthem when the players are still in the locker room, you're gonna have the players say they're not able to protest anymore. You're gonna have the people saying, like, you're changing, like, history of the league and you're not allowing them to celebrate the flag and things like that. The people that are against that flow. Mm-hmm. So I think the only way around that to not instigate something with either side is just leave it as is.
So like right now, the players are not out when the national anthem is being played at this time in the NFL, but in college they are, in high school they are. And if you're telling me right now those kids in college and high school aren't going to protest, you're lying to yourself, because the movement is from children to adults.
It's a young generation thing. Yeah.
Correct. And they're the ones who are highly active and mobilized on social media. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm saying I think it's on Goodell and the NFL to figure this out, to figure out a game plan, how to mediate this.
Yeah. If
they even want to. And if they don't, fine, let it be the way it is. But you're going to lose somewhere.
Yeah. And speaking of Goodell and the NFL, I mean, just kind of transition. Other topic as assigned, Dr. Fauci came out and said that he wanted did you see this, Zach? He wanted the NFL to be played in a bubble.
What does that mean?
And
like here, like downtown Austin? Like
just like in a certain area, because of the COVID-19.
Oh, like
stuff.
NBA is doing, and like
the
MLB
NBA
might be doing.
Yeah. Which
look, I'm gonna take
it can't happen, right?
Look, I'm gonna take a page out of some of these pundits' page book. Fauci, shut up and read a model, bro. Don't mess with the game. Just saying. So,
I mean, do you think that the NFL is different than Major League Baseball and NBA? Is it just because of a number of people that are involved?
It's because it's a collision sport.
So
and you're perspirating.
Are we getting a COVID-19 helmet?
Man, have you seen those?
Did y'all see that?
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Ain't nobody wearing that trash. Ain't nobody wearing that garbage, Chris.
COVID-19 helmet for 1 year. 2 years.
Ain't nobody wearing that trash.
3 years. So, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was kind of ridiculous too. But I mean, we're seeing it. We're seeing the cases rise. We're seeing, you had 21 Clemson players, come down with COVID-19. You had 13 UT guys.
Did you hear the number for football? It was 28 Clemson student athletes. Mm-hmm. It was 25 players. Mm-hmm. Karma's a.
Why do you say that? I don't understand.
Because of all the drama that Dabo and the Clemson's been going through all this movement. You haven't been seeing that part?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, there's been racial slurs going. There's allegedly racial slurs being used by coaches as far as back as 2017. Dabo's been having to answer all types of questions, and people are not satisfied with his comments. And I mean, it's karma, man. That's the way I'm seeing it.
Yeah,
but I think going back to the original topic. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense for him to say that. I mean, if based on research and based on models and based on data, they've decided that the best case scenario for the NBA was to play in Orlando. Mm-hmm. Everyone, all these hotels, all these sanitization, like all of these self-quarantines and stuff, like that's based off of research. If based on models and based on all these things and based on the CDC, like if the MLB were to happen, they've wanted to be in Arizona. Mm-hmm. I mean, it only makes sense for the NFL to follow suit in terms of that is the best option to play a sport like that. And even if it is like, even though it is a contact sport, that means it's even more likely that it's transmitted between the players. So you don't want these players mixed in with, especially if there's not many fans in attendance, you don't want them mixed in with the fans. Like, how does it make sense to say there's no fans at your games, but then as soon as the game is over, go back to your apartment complex with all the fans that wish they were at the game?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think another thing that I saw come up was like, how long like these players would have to be quarantined. With Major League Baseball, we're talking like 3 months. NBA talking about 2.5 months. I mean,
football, you're talking
football,
7 months.
you're talking from July through January,
February.
But I think that's the price you paid to even be able to do it at all
as a player.
Like, well, as a sport in like the current climate right now.
It's interesting. Is it, Paul, I mean, do you think that's? I mean, and I agree with you up to a point where, I mean, yeah, if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna be an NFL football player, I mean, you either are in or you're out. And if you want to do if you want to play, then you can play, but you're gonna have to make some sacrifices. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of people making sacrifices just going to work every day.
Right, and I think you and I talked about at the very beginning of this was like I think I asked you, would you go? How many UT football games would you go to if you had to be socially distanced and in a mask? And you said like, I would go to all of them, and I was like, I probably won't go to any. And like if people think the NFL is gonna, it's like you can either say you want to play business as usual with less fans, same markets next year, or play in a bubble this year with no fans. It's like an either or thing. I don't think it's unrealistic to think like all these rules will have to be abided by all these other leagues, but not the NFL.
I just, where I'm at with it is we don't need fans to be there. So we can take that objection off the table. So the next part of it is if the players, football players, we've kind of talked about this, Chris, you and I, football players' makeup is just different. They're alphas. They're warriors just based off the pure sport that they play, just like the UFC fighters and the boxers. If they're willing to go through, and they're probably going to have to sign a waiver like we're seeing Ohio State do, and you're signing a waiver saying, you potentially could get COVID-19. Do you want to continue to move forward? And I'm sure that check that comes along with their contract is going to be associated with that. If you miss a game because you don't want to get COVID-19, we're docking your pay. And that's probably just the way things are going to roll with the NFL, because they have that authority and that power to do so. So I've seen players going and doing things just as usual. Now, I started thinking about this while you were talking about it. Maybe now's the time to get COVID-19 and develop an immunity to it. Because if you're a player now and you get it and you have those antibodies carry you, and the science says that you're not susceptible to a second wave, maybe they do that. Or maybe the drugs that we're producing now are just better that we have previously to the drugs we were using to combat COVID-19. I'm still in that area where if you're an adult and you can make your own decisions and you want to play and you want to earn your paycheck, go get it. If you don't, then you make that decision and you don't contribute to the team and you lose your salaries for that season. But I'm just saying, I think these guys want to go play a game. I want to see them play a game. I want to cover them playing the game. And if they're willing to do it, I'm willing to do my part.
Well, I'm just gonna, have to just not hang out with all my NFL player friends.
I know. I don't. It's like all the ones I have.
I could, hang out with so many of them, right, Zach?
Right.
So, I don't know. You know how many NFL player friends I have?
Probably one.
0. All right, Recon Athlete, episode 87. Chris Sanchez, Paul Rodriguez, Zach Luceto. I did have a friend, my buddy Marcus Wilkins, played in the NFL, but he's not in the NFL anymore.
That counts.
It counts. Yeah.
Well, Zach was right. You got one.
Yeah, I do have one. All right, Jamal Adams.
How many do you have, Paul?
0.
You know anybody that played in the NFL? Not yet.
I know for sure I have 2. I might have more. I'd have to go back and look.
Who's 2?
I mean, I still talk to Samaje.
Okay.
And then there's a kid from Incarnate Word that was actually the first UIW player to be signed. His name's Cole Wick. He's a tight end. He was he kind of bounced around teams for a little bit. I think he was in the AAFL recently, but he was in the NFL. So if your friend counts, then he counts.
Yep.
Does that count?
Yeah, I would say he was on the active roster.
Yeah.
Yep, that counts.
He doesn't have to qualify
did
for?
he dress for 53
Yeah,
man
he, like,
roster?
has catches
Yeah,
and
he's
stuff.
in, bro.
Okay. You don't have to qualify for.
I find it funny how
for a
y'all are
pension.
asking me to be the authority. Like,
well,
how do I
mean,
know?
Well, I don't know because you're not involved in this.
Because I'm owning it. That's
Because
why.
you have none. So
That's right.
All right, so
I'm jealous.
Jamal Adams, safety currently for the New York Jets, looking for a possible trade. Dallas Cowboys, our Dallas Cowboys, is a possible landing spot for Jamal Adams, and I don't know what they're going to want for him, which is going to be
A ton.
a ton.
So I heard this question on Sports Talk the other day.
Yeah.
If you're the Eagles, do you do Zach Ertz for Jamal Adams?
They won't take that.
On the Sports Talk, it was a lot of people saying that the Eagles wouldn't take it.
Number one, I don't think the Jets would take Ertz and Jamal Adams straight up. Now, they may take a 1 in Zach Ertz for Jamal Adams, and maybe that's why the Eagles wouldn't take it. But as far as I know, the Eagles want 2 1s. The Jets want 2 1s for Jamal Adams. Or you're going to have a high-profile player and a 1 to get him. And I don't think Dallas is willing to do that. As far as
I don't think Jamal Adams is going anywhere.
You don't think so?
I think he's either leaving or he's not going to play.
I think it's going to come down to him not wanting, because he's done this like 3 times.
Yeah.
And every time the Jets are like, too bad, you play for us.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're gonna ask for this crazy price for you because we know no one's gonna pay it, and then we'll just say, hey, we tried to trade you, and no one would.
What about OJ Howard and a 1? Send Jamal Adams to Tampa Bay and Tom Brady.
I mean,
Well, you'd rather have Zach Ertz in a 1 than OJ Howard.
But
in
if
a
the
1.
Eagles don't want to give up that 1, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
yeah. I mean, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
And then
But if you're the
the
Jets,
Tampa
then
Bay
you-
just gets
but
better.
if you're the Jets, then you just say that that's not enough because ultimately you want to keep your player.
I don't think they want it. I don't think. And are you talking about keeping him out of spite or just because he's that good?
Because he's that good.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how they would do things in New York, but I think they're a little egotistical.
I think you just keep him until it's time to pay him again, and you can afford him. And then
They're
you
gonna have to
ship
pick
him
up his
then.
5th year option if that's the case. And I don't know if they're gonna want to pay him that 5th year option because this is his 4th year.
yeah. And the teams that Jamal Adams said he'd welcome a trade to are Ravens, Cowboys, Texans, Chiefs, Eagles, 49ers, and Seahawks.
Imagine the Ravens, him and Earl Thomas in the same defensive backfield.
Ridiculous.
That's kind of the same thing. The
Yeah,
same thing that
yes.
Earl Thomas did in Seattle.
Yes, exactly. So my thing is,
When he hasn't flipped anybody off yet.
well, I mean,
Not yet.
not yet. Yeah, that's true. Dallas should have went and got Earl Thomas in the very beginning. That's what they really missed on that one. But
But it's the same thing. They didn't
I'm
want
with
to. They didn't
you.
want to pay. They
I'm
didn't want
with
to
you.
trade that.
And then what's the
amount.
thing? What do you do now? You have this lingering contract with Dak. You just gonna say, okay, we're gonna franchise you, Dak. And I have
gonna do all
that's
this for
another
him,
thing that
yeah.
I've been talking about is if they do go after Jamal Adams, what are you gonna give him? You're gonna give him 2 1s.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna give him 1 for 2021, and you're gonna give him 2022 first round pick. This ain't Ricky
Sounds like
Williams.
a live auction.
But that and that's the thing is like I'm saying, Amari Cooper and a 1. We'll see you later.
Well, that was the argument.
see you later.
That was the argument on the show I was listening to that Eagles fans wouldn't like and the Eagles organization wouldn't like because then you're making your quarterback unhappy. If you're in a negotiation with your quarterback, or in the Eagles' case, your quarterback is supposed to be this superstar, like in the making, how would it look on and off the field when you ship away his friend?
Who cares? If you're the number 1 franchise quarterback in Wentz, you're supposed to make all of your players good, not just your tight end. I don't really understand it. We're going to get into feelings now with contracts?
well, we're not.
I know.
The whole point of this thing is his feelings are hurt. He doesn't want to be in New
Jamal
York.
Adams doesn't want, right. That's Jamal Adams. We're talking about the Philadelphia
So
Eagles.
How come when you're the Patriots they didn't ship out Rob Gronkowski, they didn't ship out Wes Welker to the highest bidder?
They did put Rob Gronkowski on the trading block to go to Detroit.
But they didn't
And
do
Detroit-
it because of
Rob Gronkowski got called by Detroit and said, "Hey, you're coming to our roster." Rob Gronkowski got on the phone and said, "Nope, I'm retired." The deal fell through, and he stayed on the Patriots and won a Super Bowl.
I just think
That came straight from Gronkowski's mouth.
But I just think you to think that you don't take these quarterbacks' emotions into play when you're building a team. I
He
think
can't
that's
even
ridiculous.
stay healthy for a season. Why would you listen to anything he says? He didn't even win the Super Bowl. It was Foles. I would get rid of Wentz.
So then
That's
why
just me.
didn't they?
Because they invested so much capital in him, so much money into Wentz.
So if you invested all this money into him, why would you go out of your way to make him unhappy?
Because for me, and if I was an organization, I'm not giving two craps about the emotions of a football player. I'm here to win Super Bowls. And obviously they got one without him. They could probably go get another one without him. That's just my feelings on it. I'm not going to this is me. If I'm an organization, I'm not putting feelings into business deals. That's the way
but they do.
That's the
but
way
they do.
Who does that?
Everyone that has a quarterback.
Dallas Cowboys aren't doing that. Their emotions are not involved whatsoever with this Dak Prescott deal.
Jerry Jones is a robot.
But yeah, but the Cowboys have obviously said that they don't see Dak in the same light that the Eagles see Carson Wentz.
Okay, that's the way they feel about the organizations.
What? What?
That's the way they feel about their organizations. And I said I was talking about the way I would.
Right, but I think when you're dealing with the quarterback that's at the tier that the Eagles put Carson Wentz in, right. I think the emotions come very, very highly into play with dealing with these guys.
That's the way you see it, and that's fine. But I don't.
Recon Athlete, episode 87. Chris Sanchez, Paul Rodriguez, Zach Luceto. I like that.
How did we get on quarterbacks when we started with Jamal Adams?
I like that. Well, because we were talking about the trade.
Okay.
You know, how Jamal Adams might come down to Dallas. I mean, it would be great for the Cowboys if they could land him, but the Jets are probably going to make that.
So we're going to give away Amari Cooper?
I mean, it's
would
yeah.
I think I would too.
Yeah. I mean, give Amari Cooper and
a 1-1.
And a 1.
Yep. See you later.
Yeah. I mean,
get all that cap space back for next year.
I mean,
hey, Jamal Adams, get Dak Prescott's deal done.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones, if you need a GM, holler at me.
Yeah. He is his own GM.
He is his own GM.
Yeah. But I mean, it would make sense. I mean, the Cowboys need they've got Clinton Dix and who was the other one? I forgot. Xavier Woods. And then they've talked about Chidobe Awuzie, playing that
I was Awuzie.
Awuzie, yeah. Hopefully trying to play that too. But I mean, it seems like the way that the defenses are now, I mean, the more safeties, the better. Everybody's
Jamal Adams gonna put all of them to rest.
Yeah.
If he came over.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's get into our homework before we end the show. We went to watch the movie I'm No Longer Here. I want to go with Zach first.
All right. I'm not gonna lie to you. Okay. I didn't watch it.
Why? I'm just curious why.
I don't know. I mean,
I knew you wasn't gonna watch it.
I didn't think I had the time. I didn't really watch much of anything.
He didn't want to read them subtitles. That's what it was.
Yeah, and right. I can't even read. I haven't even read a book. That's like a book's worth of subtitles.
So you can't read?
I don't know. I haven't in a while, so I'm not sure. But I'll tell you what I think it was about.
Okay, let's see. Did you read the Cliff Notes? Did you watch a YouTube Cliff Note?
I did read it. Was there a YouTube one?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
What do you think it was about?
I did read the Cliff Notes. So I kind of know what it's about. But before I read the Cliff Notes.
You read the IMDb?
I thought it was about
crickets.
I didn't know at first. But then my imagination started going wild. So I was like, maybe it's because of the way you presented it that it was kind of like.
You didn't even look at the IMDb?
Did you watch the trailer at least?
No.
You didn't even watch the trailer?
I found it on Netflix, but I didn't watch nothing.
Okay.
What did you think of the poster since you found it on Netflix?
That's cool looking.
You know the thumbnail?
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
I thought it was cool looking.
What did it look like?
Like kind of like dudes like dancing in like bright clothing.
What was on the poster?
Dudes, I just said dudes.
That's
like
not
dancing.
what was on the poster.
That's what I saw on my phone.
That's not what. He didn't even try.
All right, okay.
You didn't try?
I didn't. No, sure, whatever.
Did you?
Why?
I guess not.
Were you just not interested, or?
No, like I said, I honestly didn't really want to do a show that had subtitles like that. But like, I found it on my phone, and like I said I was gonna do it, but then I didn't.
Chickened out.
Is it just laziness?
Probably.
So, but I'm sure there's like a dubbed version available. I mean, where they're speaking English.
It wasn't that hard to follow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't watch it, so.
Okay. Paul.
So
the movie's called I'm No Longer Here. Ya no estoy aquí.
So
it's on Netflix.
For me, when I initially watched it, I had it at a C. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
Now, it was cool. The music was cool. I enjoyed that. The storyline was like the Last Dance back and forth and back and forth. I was surprised when I saw that, thinking about Chris. I was like, how are you really going to that's a different thumbnail that I saw. So my biggest thing was, how are you going to give us the homework when you didn't like the Last Dance, but this exactly mirrored it, going back and forth in timelines. I was kind of interested in that, just to hear from
The Last Dance?
Yeah, The Last Dance with Michael Jordan.
Oh.
You know how they were going back and forth and you said it was hard to follow?
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious why you'd give us homework, but the movie did the same thing.
Or
were you interested in this and that's why you followed it?
Well, I mean, I was interested in, but also like the thing about The Last Dance, I mean, it going back and forth, that was kind of an issue for me, but the biggest issue for me was I thought that the way it was marketed with The Last Dance for Michael Jordan
you thought it was going
to be about the season only.
Just that
97-98 season. And like, cause they were like, we get hundreds of hours of footage from 97-98, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I thought it was just going to be like, just that one, you know, one season, but it was just like, not.
So getting back to the movie, I'm No Longer Here. Y'all know Estoy Aquí. You know, it's a movie about an immigrant who comes to the United States from Mexico, and he's a traditionalist. I mean, he is no nonsense. He wants his music. He likes his music, and if you don't like his music, you can, you know, go to HE double hockey sticks. And he basically calls all other music trash.
Yeah.
And you know, and he's a great dancer, and it's about cumbia, Colombian cumbia to be exact, and the music we're kind of listening to a light bed underneath is I thought it was like cumbia music but chopped and screwed.
It is chopped and screwed.
It is, right?
Yeah, it's slowed down. Yeah,
and you know, you get that one scene in the movie where the lady is, you know, listening to his MP3 player. It's like your battery's dying, and I'm like, what? And that's kind of like a precursor to introduce you to the music because you haven't heard it yet. And, you know, then when you do finally hear it, when he's dancing in the living room, you're like, oh, okay, this is cool. But the movie going back and forth, I think the writing was hard for me to follow. But then I sat back and I simmered on it a little bit, and it raised to a B+ for me. And the reason it raised to a B+ is because I started thinking about the story more instead of just the music, because I was so focused on the music because that's what I was interested in. But then you learn and you see the struggles of a 17-year-old from Mexico who escapes cartel violence to, you know, have a better life. And, you know, I know you probably brought this up due to systemic issues that we have. Not really, because I saw that part of it. How, you know, if you come here to this country illegally, everything and all things are against you. You know, he tried to get a job. He tried to be an entrepreneur by dancing in the subways, and you know, there's a lot of wild people in the streets of New York, and he got scared off. And then he tried to go get a job right afterwards, you know, cleaning up, and he was unsuccessful. And before you know it, you know, he gets a tragedy occurs in his life in that timeline, and you know, he turns to a substance, and then, you know, the cycle starts over. Yeah. And so you kind of see how, you know, the difficulties that you have, and if you don't have the coping skills. And, you know, I was a little upset that he was so arrogant. Yeah. He was so arrogant that he couldn't allow himself to assimilate or accommodate to any little help. Yeah. Because people were trying to help him very little along the way, but you know, that the arrogance took him home.
Well, and I think that was a part of the movie that, you know, to me it made it it made it pretty real, because when you think about you when you're 17 years old, I mean, you know everything. Yeah. I mean, right? I mean, you know exactly what's good for you. You know exactly what's cool. You know exactly what, and you are kind of you're hard headed. You know, as a 17-year-old, you know, yeah, and you can't figure out, you know, like, oh, these people are trying to help me, but I get frustrated, and you know, now I'm just gonna, you know, say F the world and be like, no, I don't need any help, so I'm gonna try to make it on my own. But yeah, I mean, I thought for me it was a great movie, because just for me it was fun, because it was, you know, look into a subculture in Mexico, you know, in Monterrey. Right. And it was, you know, these guys, this group of dancers, you know, these kids, they were underneath, like, they weren't a gang, you know, but there was a gang affiliation because they needed it to to survive. Yeah, for protection, to survive. You know, and the kid gets you know, the main character gets kind of blamed for something, and you know, these gangs are after him, so he has to leave. It's like, okay, I'm going to come after you and your family. And so his family's like, okay, well, this cartel's coming after you. You got to go.
Yeah.
See ya. Bye. You know, and so he goes from Monterrey, finds his way all the way up to New York City, doesn't speak English, you know, gets in with, you know, some people he knows, some friends, you know, and tries to make it, doesn't, gets sent back to Mexico. But when he gets back to Mexico, everything's different.
Right.
You know, and he doesn't have this group anymore, you know? So, I just, to me, I like the movie because one, it gave you a look into a subculture that, you know, I didn't know, you know, existed. And then, you know, two, I thought the story was pretty cool, you know, and because it was very realistic on how a 17-year-old kid would act, you know, in these types of situations, you know, to me.
Yeah, it was hard for me to kind of identify that during the movie because I was trying to keep up. But then, like, after sitting back, I'm like, oh yeah, he's 17. And then I'm like,
and you kind of forget that in the movie.
I forgot it because and then I was like, because you really don't find out how old he is until probably a third of the way through the movie. And then when I sat back, I was like, take yourself back to when you were 17. I'm like, oh, it makes sense now.
Yeah. I mean, how difficult it would be for us to go to a country that we didn't speak the language, you know, trying to figure out.
You
didn't know anybody.
You don't have any money.
It's not legal for you to work there. Yeah. So, you know, and he did. He tried to find a job. He tried to find a job on his own, you know, going into this little bodega and trying to, you know,
ask for work,
you know, tried dancing in the streets. And it was funny. There was that one scene where a police officer says, hey, do you have a permit? Yeah. And the police officer is actually trying to help him.
He's being pretty nice to him.
He's actually trying to help him. Like, hey, all you got to do is call 311 and get a permit. He's like, but you need to get a permit. And because he doesn't speak English,
he sees authority.
Yeah. And he just, you know, says, F you, and runs off.
Runs away.
Yeah.
Because he's scared.
Yeah. So
he doesn't know anything.
But I don't know. I thought it was a good movie. I think, I would give it an A-, B+, A- for me. Zach, if you want to watch it, you can. You don't have to now since we've already talked about it.
How did you hear about the movie in the first place? How did you come about it?
It was just suggested on my algorithm.
Because when I was looking it up and stuff, I saw that it was like at a bunch of film festivals and things like that. So it's like it has like a ton of reviews. Like a lot of people have watched it, but it's only on Netflix. Like it was not like a theater release movie or something. So I thought that was curious that you even knew about it in the first place.
Like I said, algorithms, you know. Yeah, this stuff goes. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I was watching something.
Well, like what were you watching? Were you watching some kind of cult movie or?
No, I'm trying to think of like what I've watched on my Netflix account lately.
Probably just if you've watched anything in Spanish or anything else that's like like that I'm sure that it pulls it like that.
I mean, and because, you know, my Spanish skills are, you know, I would say subpar, better than, you know, most English speakers, but I try to watch television shows, listen to music and movies in Spanish so that I can just kind of train my ear, because I have to, you know, with my job, you know, I have to, you know, work with a lot of people that don't speak English at all. So
you know what helped me? This is one of the ladies at work. She turned me on to.
Rosetta Stone.
No. She was like, buy Spanish children's books.
Yeah,
read them.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a real, like, how do you learn how to? That's the best way to do it, because you see the context of the words and everything.
Yeah, I don't want to mention this, but yeah, since you brought it up, yeah, I watch Spanish. I will, like, Saturday mornings or something like that. I put it on the Spanish channel and watch Spanish. Yeah, well, Spanish kids shows. You know, because it kind of teaches you a lot of that stuff, and it's hard because, you know, in our homes,
it would help to watch Spanish versions of shows or like kids stuff that you already know.
Yeah, and in our
because you already know what it says, so now you're learning it in Spanish. I wonder if that would help.
Yeah, and just, I mean, all three of us, you know, in our homes, we didn't speak Spanish growing up. No. You know, it just wasn't something that, you know, was part of what.
But y'all all have it in the level above that, right? Like your parents spoke it in their homes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Not at school though.
Yeah.
They
Not
weren't-
at school.
They weren't allowed to speak Spanish at school.
They were at that's actually kind of the reason why my mom didn't teach, was because she went to a private Catholic school, and it was ran by nuns, and the nuns would give you a putazo if you were speaking Spanish.
Yeah. I mean, even in the even in the regular schools, public schools, especially here in Central Texas. So, where'd your parents grow up?
My dad grew up in Temple. My mom grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth area, a town called Greenville.
Okay. And you?
My mom grew up in Laredo, Texas, which that's on the border. And then my dad grew up in Lockhart, America.
Yeah.
But both of their parents were like military families, so they like grew up like all over the place.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And my mom's from Lockhart. My dad's from Littling. So, yeah. Our parents are about the same age, right?
No, not my. Well, my mom is probably close. My parents are way younger than your parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. My parents are mid and late 60s.
Yeah.
My parents are both in their 50s.
Yeah, my dad's in his 50s. My mom's right at 60.
Okay. So they might have had a little bit of different, experience.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're
Maybe a
talking
little
about
experience.
they lived through the 60s. I mean, so it's not that uncommon.
You know what we should interview all our dads at once.
Well, you already know my dad.
Yeah, but not like an interview, like formal, like getting to know his.
Y'all would be amazed if you did that.
And speaking of do you guys get have you been admonished by Spanish speakers before because you don't speak Spanish? Because I have
all the time.
Yeah,
bro. Listen, Chris. Listen,
all the time.
Listen,
we're looked down upon.
Listen, I spent the worst 2 years of my life in Laredo, Texas. The worst, because the way I looked, gordo, ain't speak a lick of Spanish, bro.
When were you down there?
In 91, 92.
Yeah.
No. 90, 91.
Yeah.
90, 91. Yeah, bro. I mean, and you had people looking like BJ who are just like rattling off Spanish like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And then if you look like I did,
And you didn't?
and you didn't speak Spanish, bro, it was like all kinds of stuff were said to you. And I had to ride the bus, bro.
Yeah.
I had to ride the bus. And of course, you're in first, second grade.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when you got like fourth and fifth graders, getting all rowdy? And then when I came to Central Texas, man, I had in Lockhart, I mean, that's when I like earned my reputation because
then it's like, know more Spanish than a lot of people.
And now it's like, I had to earn my last name. It's like you have to earn the respect of the people who are that your complexion. And let's put it this way, 3 trips to the principal's office, and then I didn't have any problems with the rest of my time in Lockhart, America.
Yeah. Zach, what's your
but these were
your experience with the being a non-Spanish speaking?
Well, I think it's
Latino,
like that
or
trained
Latinx,
trained response you get
it's not Latinx.
when you when someone asks you if you speak Spanish or hey, do you talk Spanish or whatever, you would say if anyone asked me that or anyone asks you what do you say? What do you say if someone asks you?
If somebody asks me, I say no, but I understand.
Okay,
it.
right. That's what everyone says. Even if you don't understand it that well, you have to say that to save yourself. You're no, I don't speak Spanish, and then they kind of look at you, and then you go, but I understand it. I can understand it
because it's easier for them to
right.
Because I don't want to tell them I speak Spanish, and then
they associate some sort of Spanish with you, at least he can understand it. So it's almost like oh, they'll give you a chance, if they think you understand it. Because I understand Spanish enough, but I don't understand Spanish, Yeah. So I'm halfway kind of lying when I say that, but it's you have to say that to save
face.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Why do you feel like you need to say? And that's that's the issue. I've had this conversation with
the reason the reason I tell people then they say, oh, do you speak Spanish? And I say no, is because if they need help or if they really want to have a conversation with me, I don't want to have them to have the expectation that I'm going to respond in Spanish because This is how respectful I am. This is the United States of America. In the United States of America, I'm speaking English. Mm-hmm. If I go to Mexico, I'm gonna speak Spanish. I'm gonna try. Mm-hmm. And if I go to France, I'm gonna try to speak French. If I go to Germany, I'm gonna go speak the language that's dominant.
Yeah.
And so I just have that kind of respect. Yeah. So if you come here and I see someone who tries to speak broken English, I'm gonna try to speak broken Spanish back to you because I want to reciprocate that respect. Yeah. But that's just the way I feel about things. But I don't want to have that expectation to say, bro, don't be asking me something in Spanish and I can't keep up because you're from the motherland. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
And I think like I had it for me when I got my the position I'm in now. Yeah. As director of payroll and benefits. Yeah. Like I had to earn the trust of a lot of the Spanish speaking people because like they didn't trust me because I didn't speak Spanish. And I was just like, okay.
And you're weddle.
Sorry. Yeah. And, I got, light eyes and light skin. But
you do have light eyes.
Oh,
dang.
You like them?
Man, I got poopy brown eyes.
He's just envious of us, bro.
But anyways, yeah, I mean, like, there's like this trust factor. Yep. Like if you don't speak Spanish, there's like that you lose it if you're, if you're a Latinx.
Stop saying that.
And I think also, if you're
we're not changing
yes,
masculine and feminine.
Yes, we are.
No, we're not.
Oh, yes, we are.
No, we're not.
We'll save that one for another.
And I think also like when you're around like Spanish speaking people, especially Spanish speaking people that like care about you, that like are, and you say, I don't speak Spanish, and you don't add the suffix of, but I understand it, then they're talking around you and they're like, oh, that means, I just said, and you don't want, I don't want that,
Well, I think what people have learned with me at work is like the Spanish speakers, they will slow down their Spanish and they will just like, and they don't really need to, but they will, and if I don't understand something, I'll just say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that, and then they'll be like, oh, and then they'll try to speak English, but I understand most of it, but there's parts, and it's a whole thing, man. I mean, like, it's funny growing up in, especially in Texas, you would expect, and that's the thing. Like, there's an expectation of, especially somebody in our age group, to speak Spanish, but it's not like it wasn't taught to us. It wasn't our number one language growing up. And I think I've told this story before, but my cousin, asked our uncle, like, hey, how come you didn't speak, his dad, like, hey, how come you didn't teach me Spanish? He said, well, I didn't want you to grow up with an accent. I didn't want you to have an accent. I want you to have a Spanish accent. Yeah. Because if you have that Spanish accent, the perception is in the white world is, the uncle said, I don't want you to talk like that.
Yeah, you don't want to be inhibited in any way.
Yeah, I want you to have an American accent when you speak.
Right.
Because that's going to help you.
Yeah.
And honestly, me personally,
it's a double-edged sword.
I think it has. I think, for me, it has helped me.
You think it has?
Mm-hmm.
See, now
I really do.
I think,
especially on the phone.
Well, see, those skills I think can be
talking
sharpened.
to people.
Sure.
Talking to people of authority.
Doing this.
And meeting, certain people, especially older generations.
Sure.
They might have there's that perception, and then when you start speaking,
right?
Oh, well, he's okay.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Like it takes down their defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, there is that. I don't know. I don't know, Zach. I mean, you're younger than us. I don't know if you've really experienced that at all. But I mean, I have growing up. Like, I feel like when I meet somebody, they're kind of like,
yeah. I'm gonna let Zach go.
Yeah. I mean,
I think even even in school, like if I think back to the people that didn't speak Spanish, but I mean, because I never grew up in a Spanish speaking area.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Like where my dad grew up in Temple, like a lot of those people that he hung out with talk Spanish. Like past that, like they all grew up in the valley and things like that where they speak Spanish.
Right.
I mean, I never grew up in a place that people talk Spanish. So like being in middle school or in school, like seeing the people that I mean, there's a neighborhood in Pflugerville that they call Mini Mex. They call it Mini Mexico.
Okay.
And so like everyone speaks Spanish there, but there's multiple of those people that don't speak Spanish and are like us, like can understand it but don't speak it. And just the people that they would hang out with, just because they did have an accent when they talked English, because they're around Spanish all the time, and that kind of dictates who you are like you're cast with, you know, like who, because of how you look and sound. Like if I look and sound like I'm part of normal white, like whatever, I'm able to go all these different directions.
Right.
Than if I say, hey, my name is Zach, blah, 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 I play baseball, all of that with an accent, and I'm only allowed to go.
It opens different doors.
Right, exactly.
See, my experience, I find it valuable in the sense that I love seeing the faces of new people I meet, because when you see me out and about, you see this figure, but then when I open my mouth, everybody's just like, oh, you don't look like you sound. Yeah, I know that, but I use that to my advantage, and I use that to put
I don't
myself.
think you look that different than you sound. It's not like you're speaking French or something.
But you only know me. You only know me a certain way. Because
I think if you had like a Patrick Mahomes voice, then
no.
you would look different than you
But what I'm
sounded.
saying is that if you saw me walking down the street, you probably would not expect me to have the type of voice and dialogue and tempo and cadence that I'm kind of, you know, exuding now. And a lot of times it's just based off appearance. You know, you may think like, oh, well, this guy's got a backwards hat, he's got a black shirt on, he's got a big beard. He's probably not from a good place.
He's probably from the North Pole.
He's probably not from a good part of town. But then when you open your mouth, all these walls just start falling down, and I think that's valuable. I think that has a lot of good qualities to it. But at the same time, I like to make people nervous.
Yeah,
that's just my feeling. But I think it's valuable to have that skill set. But I think it's also valuable to have, you know, the skill set to speak Spanish and communicate.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
In my job, you know, I have the majority of our clients are Spanish speaking, you know, and they write in Spanish, and I've become very good at learning, you know, different words and picking up different phrases and how things are structured. And I'm like,
because sometimes they don't spell the
or
word.
it's not grammatically correct.
Yeah.
And I understand that, you know, these individuals come from where they come from, and you know, the education is not as proper as it should be, but at the same time, you know, you get the gist of it and learn from it and grow. And I think that if you can acknowledge your culture and you identify who you are, but at the same time, you have a certain level of patriotism because of where you grew up and where you were born, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that if everybody can understand that, we can be a better country. You know, it's one thing to identify and own your culture, but that doesn't mean that's going to define who you are for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Speaking of accents,
I like this topic.
My high school Spanish teacher, born and raised in Ireland.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, white dude, brown hair,
Yeah.
thick Irish accent.
Like Conor McGregor?
No, more like proper, like
Oh, okay. Educated.
yeah, fluent, perfect accent Spanish.
Yeah.
It was
Does it-
super weird.
Yeah. There was
super
that reminds me of a story, man. I got into a lift a few weeks ago, or it was before the pandemic, and this dude that was our driver was from the UK, big old UK accent.
Yeah.
And he was listening to Bad Bunny.
Really?
Yeah. It was hilarious. I was like, "Are you listening to Bad Bunny?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I love Bad Bunny." And I was like, "All right, cool, bro." You know, he had the big old UK out, you know. So,
But it's vogue to be like Hispanic right now, Spanish.
Really?
It's popular. Yeah, dude, it's popular.
is it?
I mean, look, you see all over. we've been out to places where
Yeah.
bars on 6th Street or different bars around Austin, they're saying they got Tejano. I've seen words like sucio, like bad boys. I've seen, you know, people who are anglers. They're Tejano angler. You see different things. That's Texas,
Well,
but
that's
it's
definitely because of like the Bad Bunny, the Osunas.
and that's what I'm saying is like that's popular of what's becoming nowadays, and like you know the reggaeton or the banda or bachata, whatever music's out right now.
Yeah.
It's just something that's popular, and I think it's really cool for us to kind of like own the Tejano music that we kind of play in the beginning, because that's who we are.
Yeah. We grew up with the Tejano music, which is kind of dying out.
Would you say we're a Tejano sports show?
No. Well, I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I would say so.
I would say so.
Yeah. We're all Tejanos.
Right.
If we talk about sports, it's a show.
Yeah. Snoop, do you know any Spanish, Snoop? See?
Yeah, he does.
The one thing about Snoop, I told him a couple months ago, or it was during Christmas. I was like, Snoop, all your friends are Mexicans. And he didn't even think about it. And he goes, you know what? They are.
So we're talking about like growing up around Spanish and stuff like that. When you go to family gatherings, or you're in Laredo, or you're like around a bunch of people that talk Spanish or even talk English with an accent, when you leave, do you think you have a little bit of an accent for a little while?
Oh yeah,
No.
I do.
I
will.
And I think it's crazy how that stuff like rubs off on you. Like if even for a little bit, like it'll only be like a couple hours even. Or
I mean,
like
you even might be talking to somebody and you might change your accent.
Yeah.
Just to kind of fit in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
That doesn't happen to me.
Okay, so I had my 40th birthday party a few months ago in February.
Yeah, I know. I was there.
Did you meet the neighbors that came from across the street? Roque and Maria.
I think I shook their hand. Yes.
So they Spanish, they English a little bit, but mostly Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And my family, and this is why I love my family, like especially my aunts and uncles, they realized that they were like not English speakers, and so they made like a conscious effort to, switch over. Like my aunts and uncles they would speak English to each other,
right?
But then when they went over to talk to Roque and his wife, Spanish.
Yeah.
And then they started all like they all sat together, and then they switched to Spanish.
Yeah, it's kind of like
just to make sure that the two people that were sitting there were in the group.
Yeah.
To include them. And I was like, I thought that was really cool. And BJ says Tejano music dying out. Y'all need to go down to Corpus, then rethink that. Yeah, we do need to go down there.
I didn't say that.
Well, I mean, just like in general. Like maybe not in certain areas of Texas, but in general.
Even in San Antonio, like you go to the clubs, like you go to a club in Austin, listen to music. You go to like the equivalent of that same club in San Antonio, the music that you get mixed in, you never would hear here.
No.
Like
I don't know.
You go to a club and
you go to Chupacabra. Or what is it called?
Even Chupacabra, like that's one of like the home spots here. Like you go to San Antonio, like you hear like when they get on like when you go to a club and they go on like the string of like lady songs, like you go to San Antonio, like that string's got like 1-2 Selena songs in it.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there's clubs here in Austin that we don't go to. Like there's one off of Burleson, I think it's called Zetas. I think that's what it's called.
I mean, obviously, if you go to like a Tejano club,
right? It's gonna be all like primarily that, but they're gonna mix it in a little bit of like hip hop, like 1 or 2 songs for the ladies.
Like you go to a hip hop club here in Austin, it's all hip hop.
Right.
You go to a hip hop club in San Antonio, it's hip hop with some Tejano music mixed in.
Yeah, there'll be like a mix, a remix, or something, and then of course like Bad Bunny or reggaeton or anything like that.
Right up. You know what happened to me last night at Taco Cabana on the drive-thru?
This is interesting.
So like I got off of work and I was like, I'm gonna get a couple tacos. I'm hungry. So I go through Taco Cabana and the lady's like, hey, how may I help you? Taco Cabana, blah blah blah. I said, yeah, may I have 2 beef and bean tacos? And she said, soft or crispy? In her accent. I said, soft.
In what accent?
Spanish
in
accent.
a Spanish accent.
Hey, you don't know,
soft or crispy?
know who be working at those
I
places?
do.
And
you go to Panda Express and it's not Asian.
And
people,
so on the screen it said 2 soft beef tacos.
Okay.
And I was like, may I have beans on those tacos?
Mm-hmm.
And she kept saying, so I said I wanted beef and bean. But
why does she?
But she couldn't get the bean. So I said, quiero frijoles.
See.
And she was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, so quiero 2 tacos con frijoles, sin lechuga, sin tomate. Oh, okay. And then she just started she knew exactly what. So I had to like speak Spanish at the thing because she couldn't understand my beef and bean, English,
especially through like
it's,
through the intercom.
so like, and then when I get to the window, everything's in Spanish. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, I mean,
That's a good story.
I had to, for me to get, the kind of taco that I
that's
wanted.
what the movie was about.
I had to, yeah, because like, you're,
I'm surprised you knew what lettuce was.
bro, I'm telling you. So before we finish off, I will say this, like when I do start speaking Spanish to a Spanish speaker,
Yeah.
they'll always say, "Tú hablas español?" I'm like, no, I don't really.
Not on your level.
Not on your level.
But I think that's actually a good point. The Taco Cabana story, like being in San Antonio, being in a Spanish speaking area, going to a Spanish speaking place to eat, like the taco truck or something like that, your experience is so much better if you're with someone that speaks Spanish.
That's true.
Because you can get like the food that you'll get, it's different because they know what you're ordering.
Yeah.
As opposed to like trying to figure out how to say it in English.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think we spent 30 minutes on Spanish.
So
yeah, it was
And I
awesome.
didn't even watch the movie.
we know.
All right, Recon Athlete episode number 87. Chris Sanchez, Paul Rodriguez, Zach Luceto. Shout out to Snoop Daniel, just came into the studios. Virginia's listening. Virginia is BJ's wife. She is a kindergarten. I think it's kindergarten or pre-K. She's a English or ESL teacher.
Okay.
Bilingual teacher. So she's one that she's at home. It's English because BJ's doesn't speak Spanish, and then at work it's all Spanish. Yeah. So, yeah, interesting for her. All right, check us out Wednesday. Off air, we'll talk to Zach about when we're going to take our little vacation break. If we're going to, we're all going to do it at the same time. We got the case now, so if we need to, like, if I need to take a week off, or because I know Paul's not going to be here, and we'll all kind of talk about that for the summertime, just so we can kind of get I know Zach's young, so he don't need a break. Right. All right. Shout outs, Zach.
Shout out this table. Hold us down.
Holding us down. Paul.
Shout out to Zach wearing the Jesus slippers, the best around. Shout out to Shout out to Chris.
Are
So
they Birkenstocks?
Sorry. You're very interruptible the way you talk.
It's because I pause.
So we talked about Round Rock Hairy Men.
Yeah. The hairy man.
The Texas Collegiate League is adding teams just popping up everywhere in Texas in a lot of the minor league stadiums because there's not minor league baseball. San Antonio's team, the Flying Chanclas.
Yeah.
That's their TCL team. I'm gonna have to buy y'all a shirt.
Yeah. My
Tell them
buddy
to donate.
My buddy Jason has the hat. It's got the little.
Tell them to donate it. We'll promote it on the show.
Yeah. Look it up. Finish your shout outs, Paul.
Shout out to Zach's Flying Chanclas. Shout out to Chris Sanchez, the GOAT in the back room, sitting in the green room, Snoop Daniel, GOD, my parents. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there in TV land.
Yeah, no, I'll shout out to God. Shout out to my parents. Happy Father's Day to my dad, too, and everybody as well. And we'll come back Wednesday evening at 8:30. And, one of these days, Zach will give us another homework assignment. All right, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all enjoyed the podcast, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Everybody on YouTube, hit the bell. We'll let you know when we upload. We gone.